Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Kahn, I want to come to you. We heard today about the growing gap between the public and private R&D worlds here today. And I do want you to speak on this gap from the industry's perspective and elaborate on any policies you can believe to narrow that gap. But before you do that, I want to make a couple of comments about the discussion we've had. We've talked about a path where we get people in STEM, where the colleges, whether they're junior colleges, which I graduated from, and then U of H, which is where I met my bride 42 years ago at junior college. So I'm a big junior college fan. And then we go to U of H, but you graduate, and then you want industry to have a set of goals. I forget exactly how you all phrase that, to where we have a dual path going on here. You've got universities, institutions of higher learning, education, call them what you will, are training up students so they can make that over into industry. And then industry has to be able to give them, you had a term for it. It wasn't a certificate. It was something else. That they knew that they were on the right path to be able to work in that industry. So for R&D to work, I think we have to have an education system that has that aim in mind, that's also STEM-oriented in some fashion, and is able to train up these scientists, if you want to call them that, and you researchers, and you put them over into a system like you have, Dr. Kahn, that you've been in. How do you get those goals into the university so that they can turn out students so that you've got good, productive scientists, researchers working for you?
So I think Dr. Gallagher started this, addressing this in the need to create the right partnerships, coalitions, consortia, whatever term you want to use. Let me specifically address, and I always look at the young scientists that I hire into the organization and then mentor, and we distinguish between technical skills which are needed for a specific task versus problem-solving skills which are learned.
If you will hold just a second, you referred to the core competency in your, Dr. Gallagher, with Mr. Gonzalez, in your exchange with Mr. Gonzalez. Is that what you're referring to? The technical skills, the core competency?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dr.
So, as you can hear independently, we're aligned. When I take and I look at a graduate coming out of a great institution, any of our institutions, I look, does that person have the technical skills to do the job today? And many times we actually have to provide them those technical skills in the early part of their career when they come into industry.
Why doesn't the college teach them those technical skills?
Well, let me give you an example why part of that is possible. But if you want to be, you want to operate a manufacturing line, and you want to be the line engineer, it's unlikely that that full-scale engineering line sits within an industry, within an academic environment. And secondly, if we look at people management skills, how do you get your team of people to operate that line if you're that line engineer? So I can give you lots of examples where that apprenticeship part has to be picked up from as the student arrives or the graduate arrives out of the academic institution into the work environment. And I think any of us who made that transition, you learn a lot on the job. When I came out of medical school, that first year of internship was a heck of a learning curve. And I think that's true for whether it's engineers, physicians, doesn't really matter. So that's one part. The key ingredient to success for our trainees is their problem-solving skills. And STEM education in general allows them to focus, frame the problem, identify the resources needed, and then work on getting that problem solved. That skill starts from the first day they're in class in an academic institution. In fact, one thing I want to make a point, we all talked about the lack of people going into STEM. That shouldn't start at high school. We have to make STEM attractive right down to elementary school. We're losing so many young students because somehow we sort of have this, we communicate that this is going to be really tough, and we lose way too many students. So part of the problem is we're not getting enough very early in the pipeline.
How did that get communicated to you?
Multiple ways. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I'm an employer and an educator.
But you weren't a father or grandfather when you started early in your education career.
I misunderstood you.
How did that get communicated to you?
Because the teachers that I had, I was fortunate to have teachers who actually inspired that science and math was actually cool.
How about your parents? They play a role?
My dad was an engineer. It helped.
All right, that's pretty informative. I appreciate that. I yield back, Madam Chair.